Hello, fellow risk takers, and welcome to my worst investment ever. Stories of loss to keep you winning. In our community, we know that to win in investing, you must take risk, but to win big, you've got to reduce it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm on a mission to help 1 million people reduce risk in their lives. To reduce risk in your life, go to myworstinvestmentever.com today and take the risk reduction assessment I've created from the lessons I've learned from more than 470 guests. It's time you start building wealth the easy way by reducing risk. Fellow risk takers, this is your worst podcast host, Andrew Stotz from A Stotz Academy, and I'm here with featured guest Henry Eisenstein. Henry, are you ready to join our mission?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to have you. And, I was going through your bio and looking a little bit about what you've been through in your life. And I'm really excited for you to share the challenges that you've faced as well as the successes that you've had. And let me introduce some of those successes and challenges to the audience. Henry is a residential and commercial real estate agent and a real estate investor himself. He has personally sold and been a part of over $120 million worth of real estate transactions. This success comes despite being a two-time college dropout and suffering from suicidal thoughts and depression from the age of 8 to 18. Henry inspires others through his speeches on entrepreneurship, sales, mindset, and business at colleges and charity organizations around the U.S. Henry, just take a minute and tell us a bit about the value that you bring to the world.
So I'm all about transformation, no matter how it looks, and when it comes to real estate, I love seeing the transformation of somebody, whether it's going from being a renter to owning something for the very first time where they can touch and feel it, or, the transformation of somebody's life of getting their first investment property and being able to handhold them through that process, and make sure they feel super comfortable and they're aligned with all the right professionals along the way.
It's I love that word. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, as you can see from my hairstyle, and and the grayness of my whiskers. But it's only been. I mean, I've been teaching for many years, but it's only been like the last 5 years that I really come to understand the difference between providing information and providing transformation. And I really try to shift all of my online courses and everything I do to answer the question, how is this going to transform someone's life? And if I can't answer that, then it's just an informational course, here's some information. And the truth is, nobody really pays for that, and they don't want that. They really need that transformation. So I'm kind of interested with the word when I'm asking about the value you bring, and you're using that word transformation. Have you always been about transformation? Did you learn something about transformation? What can you help the audience understand about the importance of transformation?
So for me, the biggest part of my transformation was going through my depression and suicidal thoughts, and then, being able to go through that. And, I went through a couple incredible trainings and events that were transformational in my life.
Mm.
And I've
And when
now
you
been able
look
to
at
help people do that.
and when I look at you now, I mean, you don't, you've got success, you've got a lot of things there. What do you think is the key for someone right now? I mean, think about that, someone listening right now. One of my listeners is they're fearful, they're afraid, they may be depressed, they may have lost their job, their business may have collapsed, they've lost confidence. What would be something that from your own experience that you would share to say, how can they make it through that and transform as you have?
Two things. Number one, life happens for you. Life life happens for us. You might not only not want to hear that, but you also might not realize it in the moment that it's happening to you. And it's very common for a lot of us, and I've had it happen to me numerous times, where you blame, and no one blames you for being frustrated, but realize that every time that something has quote unquote happened to you, there's a lot of lessons that you have an ability to learn in those moments. And it's those learning lessons that allow you to not experience the same thing over and over again. Right. And if you don't learn from those moments, it will happen again. Right. If you don't transform from those moments, it will happen again until you learn from them. That's number one. And number two is your current circumstances are not your future circumstances. And when you can come to the true realization about how real, how true that is, that statement, and you're able to just continue to find some light, some lesson, and then move forward and begin that, forward momentum again, it's amazing what you can change in your life. Because I've seen people come from absolutely nothing and create incredible lives for themselves in every way of the word.
Yeah, and it's like some things in life are easier to see like backwards.
Exactly.
So I look at myself here, here I am. I'm in Bangkok, Thailand, living the dream that I've always wanted to live in a foreign country and try to make my way. And I've built success. None of my friends from high school, I was like the least likely to succeed. I was, addicted to drugs. I was in a lot of trouble. And here I am at this other end of the spectrum. And then when my father passed away, I said, well, why don't we bring my mom here? And my mom and I talked to my sister and brought my mom. So now my mom lives with me here in Bangkok, Thailand, and I have a good life with good friends and just a good life. And it's when you look back, it's easy to say, but when you're 16 or 18 and you're looking forward, it's hard to see. So I like to tell people, just trust, do the
Exactly.
right
Trust the
thing.
process.
Yeah, do the right thing. Work, get away from bad people, get towards good people. Try to take the right steps, stay honest, stay sincere. And that's what this podcast is about too. I mean, it's a sincere podcast. It's real. And then with that, trust that you never know. Nobody would have predicted that I'd be living in Bangkok, Thailand with my mother. I mean, come on. Nobody would have predicted that. So hats off to you, Henry, for sparking that discussion. And I just want to say to the listeners out there, think way, way beyond where you are, because you have the potential to go to places that nobody would even imagine that you could go. So,
Life is so long. And it's like if you look in short enough windows of time, anything can appear negative, not fair, not good, right? But if you look over a long enough period of time, it almost always works out.
yeah, I love that. So if you look at a longer period of time, you say, wow, okay, actually that was meant to strengthen me to face this challenge. So fantastic. A lot of great inspiration there, and I appreciate that. Well, now it's time to share your worst investment ever. And since no one goes into their worst investment thinking it will be, tell us a bit about the circumstances leading up to, and then tell us your story.
Sure. So my worst investment ever was when I was looking to buy my first investment property using an FHA loan, just as a primary residence. It was a 4-family property, and at the time, I did not have the connections that I do now. And the contractor that I was referred to was referred by a friend, sort of a friend of a friend situation. And I just blindly trusted the friend of mine, and everything seemed great. And all I did was trust this contractor blindly. And over what should have been a somewhere between a 6 and 8 week project turned into a 6 month project, which was initially a $35,000 job turned into a nearly $60,000 experience. And by the end of it, I had about 70% of the work done 6 months later, and I had to fire him, before even the project was completed, because he was still looking for more money and nothing was being done. Matter of fact, he still owes me a washer and a dryer. And so that all being said, it took me a long time to realize that maybe he wasn't really the best fit for the job when I was just truly blind trusting this individual, thinking that everything he was doing had my best intentions.
Can you go through the thought process or the feeling process that you were going through at the time? Like, okay, this is the right guy, he comes good, recommended, everything's going well. And like there's a point where you're thinking, is this right? Okay, let it go. Like there must have been a lot of times that in your gut you felt like,
Numerous.
wait a minute, maybe you could just review that because I know that some of the listeners are in a similar situation. They may be having those feelings right now and they need to understand that kind of progression that you went through.
Yeah, I think that well, first and foremost, I didn't do any due diligence on the individual. Look, I openly trust with my heart to just about everybody, right? I don't, I don't prejudge. I openly trust everybody, and it's definitely served me well in 99% of circumstances. And when it comes to spending your money, you know, I uh, I believe now it's more important to do your due diligence up front. And, we'll talk more about that in a second. But a lot of what the experiences that I had were when I first met with him, it was a lot less about the job and the actual details of it, more than just the cost, how much money he needed right now to get started. And, a lot more about how fast I wanted to move forward. Right.
Mm.
And, I definitely looking back felt the salesmanship very hard. On top of that, what I experienced was he moved very quickly at the very beginning, which is very common for contractors. And then within a matter of 2 weeks, it just immediately overnight stopped. And everything just started taking a much longer and much longer and much longer to complete. Um, Things like permits weren't being taken care of. Everything started being on my shoulders. And again, it was one of the first properties that I ever was renovating on my own with the, not my partners, and didn't have access to their contractors.
Mm.
And anyways, it was a lot of blind faith, which honestly, when it comes to that, it rarely will turn out well.
So how would you summarize the lessons that you learned from this?
So going forward, anytime money is involved with a specific professional, I think it's important to get anywhere between 2 to 4 recommendations at least. Realize that most situations, whether you're getting a contractor, a real estate agent like myself, a financial advisor, an insurance broker, doesn't matter what kind of professional. If there's a substantial amount of money being, that's at stake, I think that without a hesitancy of a doubt, anybody should be getting those references. You have a few people that you speak to, see who you not only connect with, but also who you feel like has truly your best interest at heart, has the most experience, can see things through a lens, through your own eyes. Because listen, a lot of people, they'll talk a big game when they're in front of you, when there's a lot of money at stake for their pocket.
Mm.
Right. And what I try to, make sure people realize is, like, when I sell real estate, I tell people, I'm like, you're the only thing that matters to me about you buying a property or selling your home or anything like that is that you have such an unbelievable experience. You want to tell the world about it.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with my commission. My commission is an absolute bonus,
Mm.
right? Because when we leave, when hypothetically when the transaction's over, I don't want to just be somebody who you knew for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. My favorite part is becoming a part of those clients' lives for the rest of their lives, being part of their family. I'm invited to their kids' birthday parties and holidays, and it's like building that connection means the world.
Wow. Some great lessons, and I've been writing down a bunch of things, but just that last part you remind me of when my mom and dad moved down to Charlotte, North Carolina. They got a real estate agent that helped them a lot, and when they found their house and they moved in, that real estate agent also provided them a lot of stuff that helped them to kind of get to the community. And Charlotte was really growing at the time, and to this day, my mother, at 83, remembers that agent very well. And she
Love that.
tells me stories about how she introduced them to the community and how that helped them so much. And that's just, exactly what you're talking about. There's a few things that I wrote down too. There's a great saying that we have in America that I remember. I don't know where it originates from, but it says, "Measure twice, cut once." And so what you're talking about is do that prep work, those references, it's so critical. And also you got to keep in mind that some people are crafty and you ask them for references and they're going to give their friend. So you sometimes have to search out references beyond what they recommend.
And
Or
there's
you
no
can,
rush. There's right. There's no rush. Like, like I was in this mindset, and look, I'm from the East Coast. So, a lot of things is very fast paced. So I've learned to just slow down. Nothing needs to be handled today. That same situation, like whether it's real estate or anything you're doing, right? We'll all be there tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day. It's like, take your time, make sure you connect with the right person.
yep. And that's the other thing I wrote down is the idea of having good contracts, having good milestones and timelines, so that because a lot of the way that if somebody's really really sneaky, what they're going to make you feel is like, no, 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 we didn't agree upon that. No, no, no. I mean, come on, this takes more time, and there's more. Wait a minute. So
Exactly.
I've found a lot of comfort in making sure we got milestones and timelines in our contracts for contracts that we're going into and contracts that on both sides of that. And so that's another thing that I think is quite critical, and it can
I
help.
didn't sign a contract at all. There was no contract. It was all a handshake. I don't believe anybody anymore when it comes to handshakes.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I had a deal in Thailand where a lady came along that was a very successful woman, and she asked me to do a deal and sell a particular company of hers, which was worth about, let's say, 80 to $100 million, and we had no contract. We just had our word. I sold it, and she paid. I was like, wow, that was pretty impressive. But I didn't know what I was doing at the time. But and then
Sure.
the last thing I was just thinking about is, remember, ladies and gentlemen, when we're talking about getting references, the thing you also have to say is, are you giving references to your potential clients? Are you helping them to get those references? Just the other day, a former client of mine invited me to meet some other guys, and what that former client said is to those friends of hers, she said, "You need to hire Andrew because he did this for my company, and you need the same solution, and he can do it from you. And here's exactly what he did. Boom." And she put this information memorandum that I had written for her on the table, and then there's like, done. So just for everybody out there, focus on these recommendations when you're trying to hire somebody, but also remember the importance then for your recommendations that are out there and all that. So those are things that I've taken away. Anything else you'd add?
Yeah, I mean, like just to add on to what you said at the end, I mean, like, look, referrals are the easiest sales in the world, right? And you don't have to prove anything. Imagine, like, if you just treat everybody like gold and you do the right thing, like you said, and you have that friend who refers you somebody, it's like there's no selling involved. They innately trust you because you did a fantastic job,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
It's the best type
simple.
of business.
Simple. So, based upon what you learned from this story and what you continue to learn, what one action would you recommend our listeners take to avoid suffering the same fate?
Never, ever, ever get into a contract like before you sign anything with anybody. Make sure you get multiple references. Make sure, like, again, if it's a contractor, walk other properties that he's done the work for. If it's a financial advisor, talk to other clients that he has specifically and see the exact returns that they're quote unquote promising you. If it's a real estate agent, speak to their past clients. Like, don't be afraid to ask a tough question like, hey, can I speak to one of your past clients? Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes people just get uncomfortable asking that. Do
Yep.
not be uncomfortable. It's your money, it's your family's life at stake. It's like, you don't just get to let it go.
Yep. Fantastic. So, what's a resource that you'd recommend or that you have for the listeners?
So I have a coaching program that I put together to assist people. Anything, it's really for any type of salesperson, whether it's real estate. We dive into a lot of real estate topics in regards to investing and other things, but any type of salesperson who's looking to scale their business from, call it sub 100 to seven figures, such as myself, and then get into the real estate investment world. I've created a coaching program, comes with a course and a weekly coaching live with me. It's called the Ultimate Real Estate Accelerator. I definitely would love to have people in the program to show them, like, listen, like, you can have somebody legitimately hold your hand throughout the entire process from wherever you are to a multi-million dollar net worth. And it does not take, you know, uh, any crazy schooling or anything like that. As long as you have the right mentors in your life, you can succeed at an extremely high level.
And the way to get access to that, I mean, is to go to your Instagram.
Instagram or even my website, henryeisenstein.com. You can literally just Google me. If you want to DM me on Instagram, I'll make sure if you DM me on Instagram with Stotz,
There it is.
I'll give you the discount code for, we'll do 50% off for anybody going through your program. It's typically $2,500, but we'll do it for 50% off for any one of your listeners.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great opportunity. I'll have the links to that in the show notes so that you can go, ladies and gentlemen, and take advantage of that opportunity. All right. So, last question. What's your number one goal for the next 12 months?
Number one goal, we're looking to buy 100 units in my investment company this year. Be a massive feat, and I'm excited for it.
Exciting. Well, listeners, there you have it. Another story of loss to keep you winning. If you haven't yet taken the risk reduction assessment, I challenge you to go to myworstinvestmentever.com right now and start building wealth the easy way by reducing risk. As we conclude, Henry, I want to thank you again for joining our mission. On behalf of Stotz Academy, I hereby award you alumni status for turning your worst investment ever into your best teaching moment. Do you have any parting words for the audience?
All I can say is thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And listen, don't hesitate to reach out to the incredible mentors that are, like Andrew, like myself. Everyone wants to give back.
Yep.
We're one message away from helping you out.
That's a great lesson, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you'd be surprised how many times that we reach out to people and we find out they are happy to share a little bit. So don't hesitate to reach out. And that's a wrap on another great story to help us create, grow, and protect our wealth. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is about one guest, one story, one mission to help 1 million people reduce risk in their lives. Fellow risk takers, this is your worst podcast host, Andrew Stotz, saying, I'll see you on the upside.